One of the biggest mistakes players make in Apex Legends is not picking up and using grenades. What's going on, guys? It's Valued, and one of the easiest ways to win more fights and win more games is to know all the grenade options in and out, and how to use them to their full power. I've got you covered today with everything you need to know about your explosive equipment. But without further ado, let's get right into it. We've got to start this off with my favorite, the frag grenade. Smacking enemies for 100 damage if you land a direct hit, few things can be more devastating than a frag in the right hands. Now you might be thinking, what about Arcstars? Well, we'll get to those shortly, but first, let's talk about how frags can actually be even stronger than Arcstars. And that strength lies in one feature of the nades, their flexibility. Even though they aren't the flashiest of the group, frags actually let you do some of the coolest stuff. With the frag grenade's 4-second detonation time, you can be super creative with how you use it. Keep in mind, this cook time doesn't begin until you throw the grenade, but the timer begins as soon as it leaves your hand. And there is a ton of skill expression here. From just leading your opponents with the timer in mind to hitting the sickest sky nades that blow up right in your opponent's face. Learning this timer to the point where it becomes second nature will put you on the path to becoming nasty with frag grenades. However, what you really got to get down is how to manipulate the arc of the nade at any distance to get quick explosions on your enemies. When perfectly performed, people refer to this as a sky nade. But the gist is to learn to arc your frags, timing them to blow up right as they reach your opponent. This has a ton of uses, from just getting good damage on an enemy during a fight to catching a squad completely off guard. If you get really good at this, you can even make some crazy plays on players that have elevation on you, potentially dealing a ton of damage to enemies you don't even have line of sight on. If you just chuck these things at people's feet at close range, they will have plenty of time to move out of the way thanks to the indicator. But if you get some good air under your frags and time it right, your enemies will have little to no indicator to react to the damage. When you get that perfect arc that takes just shy of 4 seconds to land at its target, blowing up instantly for the full 100 damage, well, it's a thing of beauty, really. One of the most satisfying things you can do in Apex. Frag grenades are also great for throwing into buildings as they bounce off of surfaces. Oftentimes, when fighting from outside of a structure, you may have some odd nading angles, like through a cracked door or up onto the top floor. Being able to bounce your nades off walls or ceilings can really help you in these tight fights. Keeping the timer of your nade at all times is crucial when fighting at these close ranges, as the last thing you want to do is push through a doorway and do your own exploding grenade. Counting down to know when your nade will go off will not only keep you alive, but also help you get shots on damaged enemies right away. Frag grenades have steep learning curves and can be very underwhelming if not used properly. And at closer ranges, they're not the best due to the long timer. But man, are they good if you get them down. And guys, if you're looking to win more fights and improve faster than ever, then I can't even begin to tell you how great the coaches at ProGuides.com truly are. They can turn you into the player you dream of becoming. Make sure to check it out in the description below. Did you guys hear that sound? That's the alarm going off for your squad to get up and push that guy. If you've ever stuck an enemy with an Arcstar, then you know just what I'm talking about. These bad boys pack quite a punch if you can hit them, knocking off an opponent's entire shield, regardless of its level if they're within the blast. Add on top of this its crowd control effects, and it's no wonder the Arcstar has been the go-to grenade since the birth of Apex Legends. Unlike frag grenades, an Arcstar's timer does not begin until it lands on a target. The moment it hits a player or any other surface, the timer begins, and 3 seconds later, the Arcstar will explode. And if you manage to get a stick with these things, it's basically a free kill if you're within range to follow up. You can tell if you get the stick because you'll get an additional 30 pierce damage on impact with an enemy player. But getting sticks can be hard, and while you should look for them whenever you can, it's best to make sure you'll still land the Arcstar near your opponent if you miss the stick. If you just whip it at someone on level ground, hoping to get a stick and miss, often the Arcstar will fly too far out of range to even have a chance of dealing any damage or disrupting your target. This is why it's best to use when you have a height advantage, or when they have a wall behind them. Whether you're throwing them from an octane pad as your team pushes, or just staying on top of a building to get a good vantage point, throwing Arcstars from height will help you land a lot more damage. Not to mention, one of the biggest reasons Arcstars are strong is their disruptive power. You don't have to stick someone for them to be stunned by the blast, they simply just have to take damage from the Arcstar. Finding angles where you can still land some damage even if you miss the player is huge with these nades, and will be the difference between you having great Arcstars and just whiffing your shot every single time. Arcstars are incredible at opening fights, especially if your squad is nearby to follow up on you landing one. If you manage to land a blast on one or more enemies, it should be an easy cleanup for your entire team. Learning the timing of the 3-second detonation and then using the 5-second window to push anyone you hit before they shake off the CC will let you get a ton of easy kills with this overpowered grenade. And guys, these things are especially powerful in the late game, as they can do more damage than any other grenade if they connect with a player that's wearing a red Evo shield. Landing a full 125 damage in the later stages of the game is massive for your chances in winning a fight. And the few final circles is when your squad will be playing closely together in position to respond quickly to an Arcstar landing. With an Arcstar's timer not starting until it makes impact, you can't quite pull off the sky nades the same way you can with frags. However, you can get Arcstars in while you're undetected. The 3-second timer often isn't enough for a player to get out of range. So guys, keep this in mind and try to use your Arcstars anytime you have a good angle on someone and they're not aware of your location. The CC gives Arcstars a lot of control in fights, stopping players in their tracks if landing properly. The Arcstar is the ultimate grenade when comboing with your team. If you can learn to land them consistently, you'll win a lot more of your fights. Alright guys, moving on, we have the zone control nade, the Thermite. This guy's one of the more underrated pickups in Apex, as it doesn't pack a big punch that a well-aimed frag or Arcstar does. While its counterparts are focused on dealing a lot of damage up front, Thermites can be used to help you control the battlefield. The horizontal wall of flames may not do a ton of damage, but it allows you to zone areas while fighting and is a huge pain to play against. Using it to wall off doorways or split off enemy teams can be very strong, and they can have a lot of power in the final circles of a game. These things last for an entire 8 seconds. That's literally an eternity in a shooter as fast as Apex. 8 seconds is long enough to fully wipe a squad. Seriously guys, it's a long time. So keep this in mind before you dismiss Thermite grenades. While they're not as explosive as Arcstars or frag grenades, Thermites can often earn an inventory spot in the later stages of the game. You just need to be mindful of when you should be using it and get very good placement of your walls. With its lower damage, if you aren't being smart about the placement, the value you can get will be much lower than the other nade options. But using them to cut off an enemy squad rotating late on a final circle, giving them the option of zone damage or the wall of flame, will never be underrated. Thermites usually shouldn't be picked up over the other two nades, but if you have the space, they can give you some much needed spacing in a fight. If you guys get comfortable with the width of the wall and the distance it throws, these nades can be the easiest to use. The skill gap with this nade comes with how creative you can be, rather than the mechanics of the use. Alright guys, while each nade is strong in the right situation, you won't have space to hold on to every single one you come across, especially in the early game. Usually in the early game, it's best to prioritize frag nades and Arcstars. Typically, frags are better until enemies have high level of armor, especially if you're good with them. That being said, if you hit a good Arcstar, you won't be feeling bad about the results, so go for either of those two until later in the game. And guys, you need to keep it to 1 to 2 nades until you have a purple backpack, and then try to stay somewhere between 3 and 4 depending on what guns you're running. This is where you can start contemplating taking more Arcstars and maybe even one Thermite grenade. As the game goes later, the Arcstar's value rises, and Thermite grenades start to become a viable option in the last couple circles. I would only ever really carry one Thermite at a time, as the overall use for frags and Arcstars is much higher, even in the late game. But guys, regardless of what nade you're using, sparing inventory space to carry them and being mindful about using them when the time arises will be so important in stepping up your game. Alright guys, as always, to practice with your nades, you have to get into the firing range and practice the things we talk about. This will help you perfect your craft and bring these skills into your games. Being good with grenades is about being creative and proactive with their use. But you've got to have a good feel for each before you're going to be able to do that. Using the dummies in the firing range to test out the different damage ranges, throw distances, and all the nuances of each nade is going to help you be comfortable using them in-game. Playing around with the arc needed for a long distance Arcstar or frag, the angles needed for a good Thermite, and the timing to drop a perfect sky nade can all be done right here before ever hopping into a game. And hey, you can even throw in an Octane jump pad to make things more interesting, and give you more angles and ways to practice. Alright guys, if you were able to take in the info we talked about today and can put it into practice, you'll be landing a ton of damage with every single nade in no time. Putting a focus on not carrying too many nades, but using them effectively in fights will make you so much more dangerous on the map. And guys, let me know in the comments below which nade's your favorite. Anyway guys, my name has been Valued. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to sub to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.